The first time I kissed him, he had blood on his knuckles. It wasn't mine. That's probably the only reason I let it happen. I never expected to see Jay again. Not after high school. Not after the way we left things. But life's funny like that. It throws people back into your path when you least expect it, when you're not ready, and definitely when you don't want it. It was late spring when I moved back to my hometown. Not by choice. My mom had fallen and needed surgery, and since my brother lives in another state and my job was remote, it made sense for me to come back and help out. I'd been gone for 7 years. I never thought I'd return. But there I was, 28 years old, pulling into my childhood driveway in a borrowed car, with my life packed into 3 boxes and a duffel bag. I told myself it was temporary. Just a couple months. Long enough for Mom to recover and for me to get back to my real life in Seattle. I didn't even think about Jay until I saw him 3 days in at the grocery store of all places, standing in the checkout line with a 12-pack of beer and a frozen pizza. He looked exactly the same and completely different. Broader, beard now, less boyish charm, more quiet edge. But his eyes, blue-gray, and always a little tired, hadn't changed. I froze. He didn't. He just looked at me, blinked once, and said, "Theo?" And just like that, everything I'd shoved down for years came rushing back. We didn't talk long, just long enough for him to say he was still around, working at his dad's mechanic shop, and yeah, we should catch up sometime. I said sure, even though I didn't mean it, except I did. Or I wanted to. Or I hated that I wanted to. It was complicated. Back in high school, Jay had been the guy everyone loved. Charming, funny, a little reckless. I'd been the quiet kid in his AP English class, always pretending not to stare when he laughed too hard or bit his lip while concentrating. We weren't exactly friends. More like something between friends and strangers. We had this one night senior year after a party that I never forgot, but he never brought it up again. And then we graduated, and he ghosted. So no, I wasn't dying to reconnect. But then, a week later, my car wouldn't start. And guess who came walking up the driveway with a wrench in one hand and a lopsided smirk? Jay. "Your mom said you were having car trouble," he said, crouching down next to the front wheel like he owned the place. Figured I'd stop by. I should have told him to leave. I should have pretended I had plans or called AAA or done literally anything else. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned against the porch railing and watched him work. He smelled like motor oil and laundry detergent. His shirt clung to his back, and every time he reached for a tool, the fabric lifted just enough to show the line of his waistband. He caught me looking once. Didn't say anything, just raised an eyebrow like he was amused. 30 minutes later, the car coughed back to life, and Jay wiped his hands on a rag. "You owe me a beer," he said, squinting up at me. I almost laughed. That's what mechanics charge now. He stood slowly, stretched, and looked at me. Really looked at me. "Nah," he said. "That's what friends charge." I didn't correct him. That night, he showed up at my door with a 6-pack and a bag of chips, like we'd been doing this forever. We sat on the back deck, listening to the wind in the trees and talking about nothing. The sun went down, the air turned cool. He told me about his dad's stroke last year, how the business was slowly falling apart, how he didn't mind being stuck in town anymore. I told him about my job, my studio apartment, my boring single life in Seattle. We didn't mention high school. We didn't mention that night. But something had shifted. I could feel it. It became a pattern. Him stopping by after work, me pretending it wasn't the highlight of my day. I started to know the rhythm of his life again. The way he laughed when he was tired. The way he touched my shoulder when he passed me in the kitchen. The way he always sat close. Not too close, but closer than necessary. Then, one night, everything changed. He showed up later than usual, his white t-shirt stained with oil, his lips slightly swollen. I stood in the doorway, confused. What the hell happened? Jay just shrugged, brushing past me. Some guy at the bar was being an asshole. "You got in a fight? He said something about you." Jay said, not looking at me. I didn't like it. I stared at him, heart pounding. What did he say? Jay met my eyes then, his expression unreadable. Doesn't matter. I shut him up. There was blood on his knuckles. A smear dried along the curve of his hand. I reached for a dish towel, wet it, and walked back over. Let me see. He held out his hand without argument. His fingers were warm, calloused. I dabbed at the cut gently, too aware of how close he was, how quiet the room had become. Jay looked down at me, and then, with no warning, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a long kiss, just a press of lips, hesitant, uncertain, almost like he didn't expect me to let it happen. But I didn't stop him. Not at first. His hand was still in mine, knuckles bloodied and raw, and I felt the moment his breath caught, the second he realized I wasn't pulling away. Our faces were close, too close, and my heart felt like it was trying to beat through my ribs. When he pulled back, his eyes didn't meet mine. He stepped away quickly, muttering, "Shit, sorry," like he'd just dropped something fragile. I just stood there, holding the damn towel, not knowing what the hell to say, because I'd imagined that kiss 100 times in 100 different ways, but never like this. Never in my mom's kitchen, with the smell of lemon disinfectant in the air and blood still fresh on his hand. He ran his hand through his hair, pacing a little. I shouldn't have done that, I finally found my voice. Then why did you? Jay stopped, looked at me. Because I wanted to, he said. Because I've wanted to since senior year, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. He said it so plainly, like it hurt to admit, like he hated the truth of it. I leaned against the counter, still processing. So that night, after the party? He nodded. Wasn't a fluke, He shook his head, frustrated. I didn't know how to deal with it back then. You were leaving. I was stuck here, and I didn't want anyone to know. And now? He looked up at me, and this time, there was no defensiveness, just raw honesty. Now I don't care, who knows, but I don't know what you want, or if this is just me screwing everything up again. I studied him. The way he was standing, arms crossed, shoulders tense, like he expected me to shut him down, and maybe a part of me wanted to protect myself. To not be the guy who got kissed by Jay Walker once every 7 years when the stars aligned and alcohol was involved. But another part, the part that had never really stopped thinking about him, wanted to close the space between us and kiss him again. For real this time, no hesitation, no regret. I stepped forward. His eyes widened, just slightly. I don't know what I want either, I admitted, but maybe we could figure it out without the whole running away and ghosting for 7 years part. He laughed, just a short, surprised breath, and that tension in his shoulders eased, if only for a second. Then he sobered. I'm serious, Theo. If this is going to be a thing, if I'm going to be a thing in your life, I need to do it right this time. No half measures, no secrets. It wasn't the kind of speech I expected from him. Jay had always been more action than words. But maybe he'd grown up too. Or maybe I'd never really known him like I thought I did. I nodded. Okay, let's start there. He let out a slow breath, like he'd been holding it the whole time. Then he reached for the towel still in my hand, pressing it to his knuckles. I still want that beer, by the way. I smiled, moving to the fridge. Then I'll get the first aid kit too, because your hand looks like hell. Worthy sacrifice, he said, flopping down into one of the kitchen chairs. For what? Jay looked up at me, eyes unreadable but softer now. For shutting that guy up, and for finally getting to kiss you. That made something twist in my chest, good and painful all at once. The next hour was strange in the best way. Easy conversation, soft music in the background, the beer cold and welcome. Jay stayed longer than usual. When he left, he paused in the doorway. You'll call me tomorrow? He asked. I live here now, I said. You could just knock. He grinned. Right. Forgot how normal people operate. And just like that, he was gone. I closed the door behind him, locked it, then leaned against it for a long time. My hands were shaking. From nerves, from adrenaline, from something deeper. Jay Walker had kissed me. And this time, I didn't want to pretend it didn't mean anything. The next day, I kept checking my phone like a teenager. Not because Jay said he'd call. He hadn't. He said I could knock. But still, I kept refreshing my texts, half hoping for something. Anything. A dumb meme. A hey. A gif. Nothing. By late afternoon, I gave up and told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't some 19-year-old kid with a crush anymore. I was an adult. Adults don't obsess over kisses and wait by the phone. Adults go to the grocery store and help their recovering mothers change their bandages and act like everything's normal, even when they're spinning inside. But the thing is, I didn't feel like an adult around Jay. I never had. Around 6, I was standing at the sink doing dishes when there was a knock on the back door. The soft, polite kind, not the kind Jay would normally do. He was more of a let himself in and yell from the kitchen guy. When I opened the door, he was standing there with a paper bag and a weirdly sheepish expression. "I brought dinner," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "You cook now?" He held up the bag. "Nope, but the lady at the Thai place said this was the best thing on the menu. Figured you could use a break from playing nurse." I stepped aside to let him in, trying not to show how stupidly relieved I felt. "That was thoughtful. I'm full of surprises," he said, setting the food on the counter. "Also, I didn't want last night to be the last thing." "That kiss." I turned to him, drying my hands on a towel. "Why? Regretting it already?" He frowned. "No, just didn't want you to think it was random, or just about shutting someone up in a bar." I leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "So, what was it about?" Jay didn't answer right away. He opened the paper bag, pulled out 2 steaming containers, and handed me one. Then he grabbed 2 forks from the drawer, like he remembered where things were, like nothing had changed, and finally said, "It was about time." That threw me off more than anything else he could have said. We sat at the kitchen table, eating in silence for a bit. The food was good, spicy and comforting, but I couldn't focus on it, not when he kept looking at me like he was figuring something out in his head. I hated how well he could read me. How he always had. "You're quiet," he said eventually. "I'm processing." "Good or bad?" "Both." He nodded slowly. "Fair." Then, quieter. "You know I'm not good at this stuff, right? Feelings. Talking." "Yeah," I said, smirking. "I went to high school with you, remember?" Jay chuckled. But there was something behind it, something tight. "People always thought I had it easy," he said, poking at his noodles. "But I didn't. I just got good at pretending. I didn't say anything. I knew better than to interrupt him when he was actually opening up. Back then," he went on, "I liked you. I didn't know what to do with that. I'd never liked a guy before. And I figured if I ignored it, it would go away." I looked at him carefully. "Did it?" "No," he said, meeting my eyes. "It just got quieter. The air between us felt heavier then, but not in a bad way. More like something real settling into place." "I should have told you sooner," he said. "I should have called you, messaged you, something. But I figured you'd moved on." "I tried," I admitted. "I dated. I moved. I did everything I was supposed to. But yeah, I thought about you." Jay looked down, like he didn't deserve that. "I don't want to mess this up." "Then don't." His eyes flicked up. "That easy, huh?" "No," I said, "but it's a start." He smiled, really smiled, and the knot in my chest loosened a little. After dinner, we ended up on the porch again. Same beers, same creaky chairs, but everything felt different now. At one point, I stretched my legs and bumped his foot. He didn't move it. Instead, he nudged mine back, playful, subtle, but full of meaning. "You staying over?" I asked before I could second guess it. Jay looked at me, eyes unreadable. "You want me to?" I didn't answer right away. Then I nodded. And he stayed. He didn't bring anything. No overnight bag, no toothbrush, just himself. His hoodie slung over one shoulder and that familiar, unreadable expression on his face. We didn't make a big deal of it. He followed me up the stairs like he belonged there, like this wasn't weird or new or terrifying. My room still felt like the one I grew up in. Same old bookshelf, same scratch dresser, same creaky bed that protested every shift in weight. I'd swapped out the twin mattress years ago, but the frame still squeaked like it was stuck in 2009. Jay stood in the doorway, looking around like he was stepping into some private memory. "Same posters," he said, smirking. "You really were a death cab kid, huh?" "Still am," I replied, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Judge me all you want." He laughed softly and closed the door behind him. That single click felt loud in the quiet room. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if he'd sit on the bed next to me or take the floor or just lie down like this was all totally fine. But he didn't do any of those things right away. Instead, he stood there for a second, rubbing the back of his neck. "You sure about this?" he asked. I looked up at him. "I wouldn't have asked you to stay if I wasn't." Jay exhaled through his nose, nodded once, then pulled off his hoodie in one smooth motion. Underneath, he wore a black t-shirt that clung to him in all the right places. He hesitated again, then toed off his boots and crawled onto the bed. On top of the covers, at first, like he didn't want to assume too much. I turned off the lamp and slid under the blanket. He lay there stiffly, staring at the ceiling, his arm brushing mine. We weren't touching, not really, but the heat between us was enough to make my chest ache. "You always this tense when you sleep?" I asked. Jay let out a breath. "Only when I'm next to the guy I've been into since I was 18. I froze. He glanced sideways, saw my expression, and smiled. "Too much?" "No," I said, voice lower than I meant. "Just unexpected." He turned onto his side, propping his head on his hand. In the dim glow from the street lamp outside, I could see his face clearly. The way his brow softened when he looked at me. The slight twitch at the corner of his mouth like he was fighting a grin. "I keep waiting for you to tell me this was a bad idea," he said. "Why?" "Because I've been a shit to you. Because I kissed you with blood on my hand. Because you deserved more back then, and I didn't give it to you." I reached out, letting my fingers graze his forearm. "You're here now." Jay blinked like he hadn't expected that answer. Then his expression shifted. Not into a smile, but something deeper. Like something inside him just let go. He leaned forward, slowly, like he was checking if I'd stop him. I didn't. The kiss this time was different. Longer. Warmer. It wasn't just a spark. It was a slow burn. Familiar and new all at once. His hand cupped the back of my neck, his thumb grazing the edge of my jaw, and for a second, everything else dropped away. The past, the uncertainty, the noise in my head. Just him. Just us. When we finally pulled apart, we were breathing heavier, eyes still locked. He rested his forehead against mine. "I've wanted that for so long," he whispered. "Then why'd you wait?" "Because I didn't think I was allowed to want it." That hit me hard. Not just because of what he said, but because of how honest it was. I pulled him down beside me, and we lay there, chest to chest, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my side. The silence wasn't awkward. It was grounding, solid. At some point, I felt his breathing slow, and I thought he'd fallen asleep, until he said, so quietly I almost missed it, "I don't know what this is yet, Theo, but I want to find out." I closed my eyes. Me too. We didn't do more than kiss that night, but the way he curled around me, the way he held on like he didn't want morning to come, that said more than anything he could have said out loud. And maybe for the first time in a long time, I felt like something real was just beginning. I woke up before he did. The room was filled with that soft, early light that makes everything look gentler than it is. The kind of light that makes you want to stay in bed just a little longer, pretend the day isn't about to start. Jay's arm was still draped across my chest. He was warm. His breath slow and steady against my shoulder, and for a while, I didn't move. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling him there next to me, trying to make sense of what had happened and what it meant. There was no dream to wake up from, no confusion, It had happened. He'd kissed me, stayed, held me all night. And now he was here. I looked over at him, his hair a mess, jaw unshaven, lips slightly parted as he breathed. He looked peaceful, the opposite of how he usually looked, always guarded, always half ready to bolt. And then, like he could feel my eyes on him, he stirred. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. Then they found me, and a small, sleepy smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Morning," he said, voice rough. "Morning." He stretched, groaning softly. His hand slid off my chest and landed on the bed between us. "Didn't mean to pass out like that." "You didn't pass out. You fell asleep. There's a difference." Jay smirked, eyes still half closed. "Yeah, well, maybe I just didn't want to leave." That made something pull tight in my chest. Neither of us moved for a moment. The silence between us wasn't tense exactly, but it was full of something. Possibility, maybe. Uncertainty. The morning after is never just a morning after. "What now?" I asked, quietly. Jay blinked, then turned on his side to face me fully. "What do you mean?" I mean, I gestured vaguely. "This. Us. Last night. Was that just something you needed to get out of your system, or—" He looked at me for a long time. Then he sat up, rubbing his hands over his face. I felt my stomach drop. That silence. It wasn't a good one. "Jay, I'm not backing out," he said quickly, cutting me off. I didn't think this far ahead, okay?" That didn't help much. "I don't want to be something you regret," I said, voice quieter than I meant. He turned to me, face serious now. "I don't regret anything about last night. Nothing. I don't know how to do this. I've never done this." "What?" "Be with a guy. No. Be with someone who actually matters." That shut me up. Jay stood, pacing a little, running a hand through his hair. "It's not about you. It's me. I've spent so long pretending I didn't feel this stuff. For you, for anyone, and now it's like I finally let it out, and it's all just there. And I don't know how to do this without screwing it up." I sat up too, blankets pooling at my waist. "So don't screw it up." He laughed bitterly. Easier said than done. I got out of bed, stepped in front of him. "Jay, I'm not asking you to figure everything out right now. But I need to know if you're in this. Not forever. Not with labels. Just, are you in this? With me?" His eyes searched mine. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Yeah. I'm in this. Scared shitless, but I'm in it." That was all I needed. I stepped closer, resting my hands on his hips. Forehead, touching his. "Good," I whispered, "because I've waited a long time to have you here. I don't need perfect. I just need honest." He kissed me again. Slower this time, deeper. No blood, no adrenaline. Just him. Just us. Later that morning, Jay got a call from his dad's shop. He pulled on his hoodie and boots reluctantly, muttering something about old pickup trucks and busted transmissions. But before he left, he stopped in the doorway. "I'll be back later," he said. I smiled. I'm not going anywhere. That smile, the one he gave me after that, I hadn't seen that one before. It wasn't smug. It wasn't performative. It was real. "I don't know what this is," he said again, softer this time. "But I want to keep finding out." I nodded. "One day at a time." And when the door closed behind him, I sat back on the bed, the sheets still warm where he'd been, and thought, maybe coming back home wasn't the worst thing after all. Things didn't blow up. That was the first surprise. After Jay left that morning, I braced for weirdness, a text saying he'd changed his mind, or worse, silence. But instead, that night, he knocked on the back door again, same way he always did. This time, with a six-pack in one hand and a bag of takeout in the other. Didn't feel like cooking, he said, sliding the bag onto the counter like we were already domestic. Did you ever? I asked, smirking. He grinned. Fair. And that's how it started. Nothing dramatic, no fireworks, just small moments, quiet dinners, shared playlists, him sneaking glances at me across the table when he thought I wasn't looking. And me, realizing how easy it was to fall into this rhythm with him. How easy it had always been. He started staying over more often. Not every night, but enough that my mom made a comment one morning when she caught him leaving in the same clothes from the day before. You two catching up? She asked, her eyes too knowing. Yeah, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. It's been a long time. She didn't press, but she looked at me for a beat too long, and then said, Just be careful, Theo. I wasn't sure what she meant. Careful how? Careful why? But I nodded. Because that's what you do when you're not ready to explain something you're still figuring out yourself. Jay wasn't out. I mean, he wasn't closeted either. Not in the traditional sense. He wasn't hiding. He just wasn't saying it out loud. Not to his friends. Not to his coworkers. Definitely not to his dad. And I got it. I did. This town wasn't built for nuance. It was the kind of place where people still wave to you from their front porches, but would also casually call something gay if they didn't like it. Where the high school still flew a Confederate flag at football games for tradition. So I didn't push. I let him come over after dark. I let him kiss me in my bedroom but keep his distance in public. I told myself it was enough. But over time, it started to gnaw at me, not because I needed him to shout it from the rooftops, but because I could see how much he wanted to, how much it hurt him to keep us hidden. The breaking point came at a barbecue. His friend Connor was throwing it, the kind of casual beer and hot dogs on the grill thing that happened every other weekend once spring hit. Jay had invited me. Just like that. No hesitation. You sure? I asked. You want me there? He nodded. You're important to me. I'm not gonna pretend like you're not. That meant more than I could say. So I went. We showed up together. We stood side by side while people asked about my job and whether I was visiting long, and whether I remembered the time we all got detention for TPing the principal's car. I laughed when I was supposed to, smiled, played along, but at some point, Jay stepped away to grab more beer, to help with the grill, something, and I was left alone with a few of his friends. Connor gave me a look, not mean, just curious. So, he said, you and Jay, you, close? I hesitated, not because I was scared, but because I didn't know what Jay would want me to say. This wasn't my town anymore. I didn't have anything to lose. But he did. Before I could answer, Jay came back. And he didn't even pause. He slid in beside me, handed me a drink, and said, Yeah, we're close. Connor nodded. Cool. That was it. No drama. No slurs. No beer cans thrown. Just cool. Later, as we walked back to the car, I looked over at him. That was a risk, he shrugged. Didn't feel like one. Still, I said. Thank you. Jay reached for my hand. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. We drove home in silence, but it was the good kind. The kind where you don't need words, because the air between you is already saying everything. That night, in my room, he pulled me close and whispered, This is the part one was scared of. What part? Being seen. I kissed the side of his neck, just under his jaw. You don't have to be scared anymore. He held me tighter. Still am, he admitted, but not because I'm ashamed. Then what? Because it matters now. The first real fight wasn't about anything important. Not really. It was a Tuesday night. Jay had said he'd come by after closing the shop, and I'd made dinner. Something dumb, pasta and garlic bread. Nothing fancy. I didn't even care about the food. I just wanted the night. Him. Us. But 8 o'clock came and went. Then 9. No text. No call. I told myself he probably got held up. That something came up. But that old feeling, the one I thought I'd buried back in high school, started crawling back into my chest. By 10, I gave up and ate alone. He showed up a little before midnight, smelling like sweat and motor oil, his face flushed from working late. "Hey," he said, stepping into the kitchen like nothing was off. I didn't say anything, just stood there, arms crossed, leaning against the counter. He looked around. "What? You could have called." Jay blinked. I didn't think it was a big deal. "It's not about the food, Jay. It's about disappearing." He ran a hand through his hair, already frustrated. "I wasn't disappearing. I got slammed at the shop. I figured I'd just come by after." Right, after I sat here for 3 hours, wondering if I was stupid for thinking this was a thing. His eyes narrowed. "Don't do that. Don't act like I don't care. Then show up when you say you will. Or send a text. Something." He dropped his bag on the floor. Jesus, Theo. I'm trying, okay? But I'm not used to this. I don't know how to be the guy who gets it right. I felt my voice rising. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about not making me feel like a secret again. That stopped him. He looked away, jaw tight. "I'm not trying to hide you," he said finally, quieter now. "But this is all new to me. All of it. You've been out for years. You know how to do this. I don't. I don't know how to do this, Jay," I said. "I've never done this either. I've never had someone show up for me. And when you don't, it reminds me of every time you didn't back then." The words hung between us, heavier than I expected. Jay sat down at the table, head in his hands. "I hate that I did that," he said. "Back then. I think about it all the time." "I know," I said, softer. "I know you're not that guy anymore, but I need to know that I'm not going to end up waiting around again. Not when I've let myself fall this hard." He looked up at me. Really looked. "You've fallen?" The way he said it, like it scared him, but also like it meant everything, nearly undid me. I walked over, sat down across from him. "Yeah," I said. "I have." Jay reached across the table, took my hand. His was still callous from work. Still warm. "I don't want to screw this up," he said. "Not again. Not with you." "Then don't," I whispered. "We're allowed to mess up. But you have to keep showing up." He nodded. Slowly, like he was deciding something. "I'll do better," he said. "And not just the texting part. I want to figure out what this looks like. Long term." My breath caught. I mean, I want this," he said. "Whatever it turns into, whatever we make it." He stood up, walked around the table, and pulled me into his arms. His chin rested on my shoulder. "I love being with you," he said, "even when we fight. Even when I screw up. I feel like myself when I'm with you, like the version of me I always wanted to be." I didn't say anything right away. I couldn't. My throat was too tight. But I pulled him closer and held on like I wasn't planning to let go. Later that night, as we lay in bed, he whispered, "I've been thinking about moving." I turned toward him. "Moving?" "Yeah," he said, "out of my dad's house, into a place that's mine. Maybe ours, if you're staying." I blinked. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" He shrugged, suddenly shy. "Eventually. When it feels right. I'm not scared of people knowing anymore. I just want to be where you are." I swallowed hard. "I want that too," I said. He smiled, eyes soft in the dark. "Then, maybe we're figuring it out after all." And maybe we were. 3 weeks later, he gave me a key. It wasn't dramatic. There was no speech. Just a quiet Sunday morning, 2 mugs of coffee, and Jay standing in his kitchen holding out a plain silver key on a blue plastic tag. "It's not official yet," he said. "I still have a shit ton of unpacking to do, and the Wi-Fi only works if you stand by the window." I took the key. "You sure?" He shrugged. "No, but that's the point, right?" I looked down at it. It was warm from his hand. Ordinary. And the most important thing anyone had given me in years. He nodded toward the corner of the room, thought maybe that bookshelf of yours could finally come out of your mom's garage. You mean the one you made fun of me for staining 3 different times? Yeah, he smirked. That one? We didn't call it moving in. Not yet. I still had clothes at my mom's, still slept there a few nights a week to help out. But more and more, I found myself here, in his space, our space, slowly. The town adjusted quicker than I thought it would. People still stared sometimes. Some of the guys at the shop gave Jay shit for a few days. But then someone's truck broke down, and Jay fixed it for free. And the teasing faded into something quieter. Not approval, but acceptance. The kind you only earn by staying. Jay didn't change overnight. He still got quiet when he was overwhelmed. Still disappeared into his own head when he was anxious. But now, he let me in. And I let him in too. One night we were lying in bed. His bed, our bed now, listening to the rain hit the roof. Jay had one arm around me, his other hand resting on my chest, his thumb tracing slow circles. "Do you ever think about that night?" he asked suddenly. I didn't have to ask which night. "The party?" I said. "Yeah, senior year. That moment in the garage." I nodded, eyes still on the ceiling. "Sometimes." "What do you remember?" I turned to look at him. "You smelled like beer and cologne. You kissed me like you didn't know if you were allowed to. And when it was over, you walked away like it didn't happen." Jay winced. "I hate that part." I reached for his hand. "But I remember something else too." "What?" "You looked back. Just once, right before you walked out the door. You looked back at me." His mouth twitched into a small smile. "I didn't think you saw that." I did. We lay there in silence for a while. Rain. Breath. The kind of quiet that only exists when you've stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I never stopped thinking about that moment," he said. "About how it could have gone if I hadn't been such a coward." "You weren't a coward," I said. "You were scared. And I was too. We were kids." He nodded. "Still, I'm glad we get to do it right this time." I leaned in, kissed him softly. "Me too." The next morning, I woke up to him cooking eggs in nothing but boxers and an old hoodie. "Big plans today?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. He grinned. "We're buying that stupid rug you said would tie the room together." "Oh my God, are we nesting?" He walked over and kissed my forehead. "I think we are." And just like that, without fanfare or declarations or grand sweeping gestures, it was real. Us. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And in the end, that was all I'd ever wanted.